Hello everyone, welcome to the 24-hour of PaaS, the Summit Preview 2016. We are very excited you could join us today for Hamish Watchstone's session, which is overcoming a culture of FearOps by adopting DevOps. This 24-hour of PaaS events consists of 24 consecutive live webinars delivered by expert speakers from the PaaS community. All these sessions will be recorded and posted online after the event. To access any on-demand sessions, please visit www.24hoursofpaas.com for all session links. My name is Daniel de Souza and I'm a BI specialist currently located in Brisbane, Australia. And I have a few introductory slides before I hand over to the reins to Hamish. So if you require any technical assistance, please type your questions into the question pane located on the right side of your screen and someone will assist you. This question pane is also where you may ask any questions throughout the presentation. Feel free to enter your questions at any time, and once we get to the Q&A portion of the session, I'm going to read your questions aloud to the speaker. You are also able to zoom in to the presentation content by using the zoom button located on top of the presentation window. Please note that there will be a short evaluation at the end of the session. Your feedback is really important to us, so please take a moment to complete it. It will appear in your web browser after the sessions. I'd like to take a moment to thank our presenting sponsors, Microsoft, Idera, and Attunity. In addition, I'd also like to thank the supporting sponsors for this event, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and SQL Sentry. The staging of 24 hours of PaaS would not be possible without their generous support, and they are the reason this event is available free of charge. So make sure you explore everything else PaaS has on offer for data professionals. You can join your local user groups around the world, special interest groups. You can find free online resources through our online learning center and read up the latest community news in the Connector newsletter. Now, I'd like to bring your attention to the upcoming PaaS Summit, which is taking place in Seattle, Washington from October the 25th to the 28th. PaaS Summit 2016 will feature over 200 sessions with world-class SQL Server experts. Planned and presented by the SQL Server community for the SQL Server community. So PaaS Summit is single-handedly the largest gathering of SQL Server and BI professionals. We are over 5,000 attendees for all over the world. PaaS Summit is also a great place to network and meet face-to-face with experts, peers, and also MVPs. More importantly, PaaS Summit delivers on providing you with the answers to your SQL Server issues, along with knowledge, strategies, and skills you need to stay ahead of the curve. You can save $200 right now by using the exclusive webinar discount code 24HOP200, which is on your screen. Optimize your savings by registering before the end of Sunday, September the 18th. To find out more about PaaS, about the PaaS Summit, visit www.paassummit.com. Now, the guy of the hour is Hamish Watson. He's from Christchurch, New Zealand. He's been working in IT for 6,499 days. Wow, that's a lot. He's been managing SQL Server since 2005, and he's in charge of making stuff go. He loves it at making stuff go at Jade Software. And he's also the leader of the SQL Server user group. And without further ado, here's Hamish with overcoming a culture of FearOps by adopting DevOps.
Thank you very much, Daniel, and I appreciate the introduction there, mate. Welcome everyone to my session 22 of the 24 hours of PASS. For some of you this might be the morning, afternoon or evening as it is here in New Zealand, being 9 p.m. on Thursday, September 8th. The agenda for this session will be around demystifying DevOps principles. You may have heard of DevOps, you might just think it's some marketing term that people say at conferences to be hip and cool. So I want to demystify some of the things associated with DevOps. I want to describe the journey that we'll use using DevOps principles, but more importantly, being an operations type guy, I want to show these principles in action. So sort of, take the theory and put it into practice. This is, of course, a preview. So for the actual summit session that I will be doing, it will be a more in-depth discussion about removing FearOps. And it will encompass a full demonstration. There will be a demonstration in this preview, but at Summit there will be a demonstration that will actually will deploy code to a live running prod system. So we'll kind of run a mock on it. And one of the items that I will do sort of a deep dive on will be about bringing continuous delivery to your database. One of the principles of DevOps is around continuous delivery, and I want to sort of help people understand that it's not just application coders or developers that use continuous delivery. We can use it with your database. So any changes that are going to be made in your database, we can use continuous delivery for. It's not off to the side. Right, what is FearOps? Well, apart from being a catchy term in the title of my session, FearOps is something I once read on a blog that Terry Haber wrote, and it really describes something brilliantly. And that something is about pizza, it's about beer, it's about late nights, and it's about a lot of sweat. What I mean by that is that we have a group of people having some pizza, it's late at night, and they're all very stressed. And the reason they are stressed is we're about to deploy to our production system, either our database or putting a new application code. Everyone is stressed because we've got a whole raft of configuration changes that everyone said has been running brilliantly in development, i.e. it runs on my laptop. It even passed some tests in UAT, user acceptance testing. But now we have to deploy to production, the environment that really matters, the one that our clients or end users use. And if we get it wrong, stuff is going to, people are not going to be happy, because production is a place where if there's any downtime, money's lost, and I hate to say it, heads may roll. And to make the situation worse, we've been told we can't make any mistakes, and if there are any mistakes, we have to fix it. Hence the late night, hence the sweat. And so FearOps is around a sort of a fear of change, because we've got to take the system that is running and apply a whole raft of changes. And the fact of the matter is, we don't want to just let the deployment engine do it, because look, we've got 3 months of changes, and we've got all these things that the developers have developed and now operations are going to put in place, and so we actually don't trust each other, and we certainly don't trust the machines. And so it's a fear of automation. We have to be there, we have to watch it, we have to micromanage it. And so it's a fear of new things. No one wants to break things. And it's that horrible saying, if it ain't broke, don't touch it. But the problem is, our clients want us to touch it because they want new features. Conversely, what is DevOps? Well, we have this cool definition by Wikipedia, and it's a correct definition, but it's pretty wordy. It's got the word dev and ops in there, but as you'll see during this presentation, there's a lot more than just development and operations. And there's a couple of key words in this definition. And the one that means the most to me is around culture. And as you'll see, culture is quite an important thing that we can use to kill that FearOps, that mistrust between both departments and also automation tools. Right. What is DevOps? Well, it's a couple of these words, right? So we've got culture, which is basically focusing on people. It's embracing change and innovation, because without people driving this process, it's not going to happen. And just as important is automation, because we're going to use things like continuous delivery and infrastructure as code to automate and try and remove all the manual errors that might crop up. It embraces lean, which is, iterative deployment, small batch sizes, and value for the end user. Measurement is so important because we want to measure everything. We really want to show the improvement, because that's really important to both the end user and management within our company. And sharing. We want to have open information, collaboration, and communication. And if you take all the letters of this, it spells the word calms. And in some respect, DevOps can calm us. It's a process of calms. Basically, it is developers and operations working together. We want to break down the silos. Operations think developers write bad code and it doesn't work when we deploy it. Developers see operations as some form of gatekeeper. We don't want that. We're a collaborative team. DevOps is not just an IT thing, it's a business need, because our organization wants to innovate and create innovative apps and services to solve our client or business problems. And it's a shift from systems of records. Systems of records are our large systems. They've got massive data, they're highly reliable, and we've got 1 or 2 releases a year. Systems of engagement, conversely, they have direct customer access. They must be easy to use, high performing. We want rapid change to address our customers' changing needs. And what happens is with the digital apps that we have now, it's actually driving us to make change to the systems of record. Think of the big banking system. So DevOps allows us to maximize the delivery speed. We can do it in systems of engagement, and we're bringing it back to the systems of record. Tying these together, it means that we can improve our business delivery to our customers, suppliers, and partners. And remember, our customers are the ones paying us to deliver the app. And so wrap all of these up. It's about making stuff go. My Twitter handle, generally whenever I talk about DevOps or continuous delivery or continuous integration, I have a hashtag of make stuff go, because I really do like to make stuff go. DevOps is about building on culture. It's the collaboration. It's breaking down the silos between dev and ops. It's about communication. And one of the things that I did as operations manager here at Jade was I started working with the developers, because we were having FearOps, and I set up a desk in their area, right? And I sat with them and I talked about what was happening, because at that time it was taking 4 hours to do a deploy, and we were doing it wrong. So you know what? We communicated a lot, and we started collaborating a lot. And see, I'm interested in, an operations person is interested in stability, and dev are interested in innovation and change. I'm seen as the gatekeeper, they're seen as those guys whose code breaks my database or deployed applications. So developers create applications, operations deploy and manage applications. And what we realized was we have the same goal. We want a stable application that our clients can use. It's innovative, but our priorities were slightly different. It's kind of like the same language, different dialect. So we found a commonality around coding because operation teams have always written scripts, in PowerShell, C# or Bash to manage our environments and do repetitive tasks. But by taking on some of the things that developers have had for ages, versioning our code and checking in and checking out, branching and merging, and with the evolution of infrastructure as code, we could we found a commonality because what we did in ops and what dev were doing, if we had the goal of a stable yet innovative app, then we could do this. So the benefits of DevOps are around being able to differentiate and engage continuously to obtain and respond to our customer feedback, right? So it's kind of like react and adapt to enhance our customer experience, because if the customer's happy, if we have cut down the amount of downtime associated with any deploy, if we know more about the application and how it runs, then this is great because it means more uptime for the customer, and it also means an application that is running at its optimal performance. It's tuned. People are caring about it. And by reducing the amount of waste and rework associated with applications that fall over, it gives us an increased capacity to innovate. So we can shift our time and resources to higher value activities. It also allows us to bring faster time to value. We're bringing things to market or to deploy out to prod a lot quicker, and it requires developing a culture, practice and automation, but it allows us for fast, efficient and reliable software delivery. The 4 pillars of DevOps, I think, are culture, process, tools and people. And because we have to have culture, as I mentioned before, this is the partnership of our teams. And although the word DevOps has development and ops, it actually encompasses everyone, all stakeholders in the delivery of software. So it's got the line of business, our practitioners, our executives, our partners, our testers, all of us have a stake in DevOps. And process, we have to focus on the process of how we deliver our software or deliver our change out to our end users or clients. Obviously the tools help because they allow us to do the higher value work. Instead of 3 people huddled around a laptop manually editing app.configs at 3 a.m. in the morning, our tools can do this. So and of course people. You can't have culture without people, and a process isn't going to be kicked off or evolved without people thinking about it. You have to think of all 4 pillars. You can't just focus on one thing, because if you do focus on one thing, you're ultimately going to fail. Right, so some of the principles. We want to test our app in an environment as close to prod as the app will be delivered to. And what this does is it enables operations to see early in the cycle how the environment will behave supporting that app. Basically, we're finely tuning an app-aware environment. We want to deploy with reliable and repeatable automated processes. And this is by supporting the agile software development right through to prod. Automation creates a process that's iterative, frequent, repeatable, and reliable. And that allows us to use one of the principles around continuous delivery. And again, we want to deploy small iterative batches. We want to make small changes. We don't want to do 3 months of changes all at once that encompasses about 15 deploys or changes. We want to bite off small little bits as we go along. And look, we're all involved, because we want to amplify the feedback loops from operations back to dev and vice versa. And the goal here is to enable the organization to react and adapt to changes more rapidly. And by creating the channels by everyone feeling that they are involved means that Dev can act by adjusting project plans or priorities, and Ops can act by enhancing, the prod environments once we find out some of the information down in those, Dev, build, CI type environments. And by doing this, we go from sort of the situation where it's us and them to it's us, both groups of teams. Right, so some of the tools that we use to get out of this culture of FearOps into one of more collaborative development and deployment, I'm going to list here. Yours might differ, and this isn't a sell for any of the tools, it's just the ones that we used here at Jade Software. And part of the first thing we started doing was infrastructure as code, and so we used Chef and Puppet. We also used some in-house build scripts. We're a software company, so at times we'd like to think we can reinvent some of the wheel, and so we incorporated these. And what this meant is that we started to have standardized servers and environments that we built on and deployed to. For issue tracking and workflows, we used Jira. And this enabled our clients, our users, developers and ops, as well as line of business, to put in issues and also start creating some workflows that our developers could work on. We used versioning and source control, and for this we used Bitbucket. This was great because it enabled us to have everything in source control, and that was one of the things, that was our goal. We started off small. We knew that development already used source control, but operations started getting in there as well, and leading into continuous integration, and for that we use TeamCity as our build server, does our automated builds and unit testing. But again, we needed something to get the code and apps out to the various places, and so we used Octopus Deploy. We also wanted to do management, we wanted to do monitoring of the apps, so we used New Relic. And one of the things that tied all these things together was standards and documentation. And I'll go into standards a fair bit during the demo, and even more so in the summit session. But standards meant that within, I have this thing called the 20-second rule, and I've blogged about it on my blog, about I want to find out within 20 seconds everything about an environment, an application. I want to know where all the logs are. I want to know the app pool, what user account is accessing what. And for anything that doesn't fit the standards, I know where the documentation is. And by doing standards, having standards, it allowed us to put in place some of the tools and processes so that instead of having one person who knew everything, suddenly a whole team of people could do it, and so you didn't have that one person who was always doing deploys at 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Suddenly anyone could do the deploy, but of course as we started to do automated deployments, we didn't need those people. But for fault resolution, having standards documentation is invaluable. It's our heartbeat. Another way of looking at it is pictorially. So we had Jira. We chose that because it interfaced really nicely with Bitbucket, which interfaced really nicely with TeamCity. We had our dev, our clients putting stuff into Jira. Our devs were using the IDE to commit up into source control. And of course TeamCity, this was the last sort of step for us, was finding that automated deployment strategy. And Octopus Deploy could then deploy out our code, so we might have a system at version 1.4, a system at 1.3, and a system at 1.2, leading up to our prod system at 1.1. The goal for operations, well, it is currently basically automating everything. So The goal of the automated deployment solution is to automate as many of the deployment steps as possible. We're realists. We may not be able to automate every single aspect of it from day one, but by cutting that down into small chunks, we eventually got there, because we needed to get to the stage where we could automate things in a way that's consistent, so that the same automation could be used for development, for our continuous integration environments, our test deployments, as well as leading up to our production deployments. And one of the key things for us was not manually editing config files. And I'm sure a lot of you will have seen this scenario where we have an old web.config, we've got a copy here, someone even put a date on it, but on our server we have all these web.config files, and we don't want to be in this situation. We want a master of our configuration changes that is deployed out, not by a human. Right. There is no big make it go button, and some of our hurdles was around, look, I don't have time, I'm doing my job, I don't have the time for doing this kind of thing. And so what we did was we acknowledged this hurdle. The thing was, the reason why we didn't have time was because we were doing manual deploys and we were fixing things that were going wrong, and our time was spent on rework and was wasteful. By automating the deployments, by implementing standards, by using continuous integration and continuous delivery, we could now focus our time on higher level activities, to make things even better. And that was one of the game changers for us, was that there was now time. We weren't spending that time doing the rework. And so at the beginning we actually spent some of our lunch hours, and this is one thing I'd really encourage. Find a like-minded individual in your company. I was lucky to find someone who was enthusiastic as I was, and we spent lunchtime together looking at how we could change what was, the status quo. And so what this led into the other hurdle, you've got to keep on track. So we had to bring, other people in, and we brought, and we had to sell it to management. The thing is, you've got to keep on track. You have to have that goal, that repeatable, reliable deployment is our goal. And so we now have an induction process, and it's not as scary as what you're used to with HR. We have an induction process for any new developer that joins our company, and they learn about what we do with continuous integration, continuous delivery, because we want them to spend their time in a valuable way doing what is best for them, not having to edit, doing manual deploys and being up at 3 AM trying to fix a prod deploy. So the path we got there to get to our goal, as I mentioned, Team City. I want to focus on this for the preview. It's analogous with Jenkins and Bamboo. I'm not here to sell the tools, I'm just describing the ones we used. It's around automated build management, and it is part of the continuous integration process. And again, automated testing. We didn't want to do any human testing. So if we wrote a unit test, we then looked at how we could automate it and roll it into Team City. And the cool thing was, we did all that for the application side, and then we folded in the tests that mattered most to operations, such as performance, resilience, and security. This is, working with developers on putting this into Team City. And again, we chose Team City because we wanted seamless integration with other tools. And the tool that we used for our deployment was Octopus Deploy. Again, it's analogous with Bluemix, Redgate Deployment Manager, so these are really good tools. Choose the one that you can, that fits in with your policy, company policy. And Octopus's deploy was a collaborative effort by both Dev and Ops. So operations people, we fed in some things to Octopus Deploy, and developers fed in their stuff in there, because one of the premises of Octopus Deploy, as you'll see in the demo, is it's a central repository of all the variables for all our environments. We didn't have to go out onto a server to look up what, you know, what its database server was. And so we together defined what steps we needed or wanted. Operations, I want to pre-deploy for everything. Whereas developers want to tear down and rebuild everything in the CI or quality assurance environments. Well, that's cool. We work together. Again, seamless integration, and it's continuous delivery, building on continuous integration. It fitted in with our standards. It also challenged some, and that's great because, you know, another CI word is continuous improvement. It allowed us to improve some of our processes. So I've done enough theory, I think. I've talked enough. So what I'm going to do is do a quick demonstration of Octopus Deploy, because I've talked this whole, for the last 30 odd minutes around deployment. So I thought I'd do a deployment in real life. And this is around building a standard prod-like environment. We're going to deploy code and database changes to it. And we're also going to check that our monitoring is in place for feedback. Right, so I'll just bring up Octopus. Oh. Right, so what we have here is Octopus Deploy. This is the dashboard. This is what I as a user can see. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pick a particular project, and it's this one, the interchange project. And what we're going to do is, this is an application that will eventually be deployed out to production. Here's the kicker, it already is in production, because this was a system that we had been deploying to, again at that 3 a.m. type scenario, and we needed to not do that. So what we have is our CI, our build, our functional test, our managed demo, eventually UAT in production. And so we haven't deployed out via Octopus Deploy yet. We've only been folding this in the past month. And so what we've been doing is using Octopus Deploy to remove all elements of FearOps in our, as we have a process, and this process has steps like deploy database, deploy the application, start the application, some so valuable deployment engine, right? It's not just, we want a central repository. So instead of a server looking at web.config, I come here, right? So I come to the one place where all my variables are. I can tell what the database server is for the various environments that we have. And key thing here is security. So domain password, I don't think anyone should know that. So what we have is our security administrator will come in, he or she will put in the domain administrator domain password. And so what we'll do is we'll decide that this certificate thumbprint is now sensitive. So we'll apply that, save it. Okay, so I've just made that sensitive. Let's take it off. No, which is a very good thing, because we don't want people coming in and trying to hack sensitive information. So we've just made that, we've put some security around that particular thing. Okay, and again, this is around the 20 seconds versus 5 minutes. I don't have to RDP up to a server to find out these values. If I get a phone call and asked who gets notified during a deploy, I can find out right here. Okay, So our application is interchange. So what we'll do is the system we're going to deploy to is functional test. At the moment, functional test does not exist. So every one of our systems, so the FT stands for functional test, has a hello.html. So if I go to another one, this is our build environment for the same one, has hello.html. So the reason why we have hello.html as one of our standards is so that we can tell at least that IIS is working even before we deploy our application. So what we'll do is have a look at some servers. So we are going to deploy to this server here. At the moment it does not have anything that even has the word interchange or functional or anything in there. So there's no website, and on our D drive we don't have anything there, and this is a key thing. There's just nothing. So what we'll do now is make some things go. So we're going to create a release, and what we'll do is 0.0.1 preview summit create FT for functional test. Okay, so we'll save that. Now we get a choice where to deploy it to. Well, we're going to deploy it to functional test. We're just going to create our standard environment on this particular server, which was the server here, 197. We're going to deploy our release. Here we go. Right. One of the key things is knowing what is going on. So I've just told it that we're going to do HTTP for this one. We have logging so that anyone can see what is actually going on. We're bringing information out to the people. So it's deployed, and if we have our overview, here we have our deploy there. So now if we try our hello.html, hooray! Okay, there's a wee bit of an inside joke. Obviously I'm Hamish. The person that I found that was my like-minded individual, he's a developer here at Jade Software, and so every single system that we deploy has the hello.html and it says hello Sergeant Hamish. You know, you can make what your standards are for however you want. Alrighty, so let's go back to our server. I'll just bring this over. The cool thing is, here we have C&W F for functional test, interchange. We have miss, gaps, and a few other things. Here's the deal, let's pick a system at random. We have effectively the same directory structure. So in IIS, if we refresh, we have C&W F interchange with our app interchange web services, application pools, the user is that. So I immediately know that this is related to that because all the names match. There's no Homer, Maggie, or Lisa, or Bart, or any weird sort of names. The names and standards match. So what about our SQL server? Right, so this is the SQL server that that particular application is going to interface with. And we have a database. So part of the script that ran before deployed this database. It is empty at the moment. It is empty at the moment, so it has nothing in it. But the cool thing is, it has a standard amount of security, all created by our step in Octopus down here called Create Standard Environment. Right, so that's all fine and dandy, but here's the kicker. If we go to interchange, oh, if I spell it right, there is no app. There's nothing there. So we're going to deploy some code to it. So we will we'll create a release, and what we'll do is we're going to search for a particular release, and the release is 4056. What I'm doing here is I'm going to take release 40056 and deploy it to our functional test. Okay, save. And what we'll do is we're going to deploy it to functional test. And just for now, we're going to skip this because we did that before. What I've done here is done it in 2 steps. Quite often we may do it just in 1 step. And so our steps are around, we're going to acquire the packages from our build server or repository. We're now going to stop the app on our server. We're now going to deploy the database, and this is a key thing because it means that what we use here at Jade is Entity Framework, and some of you may have heard of Entity Framework, and we use this to deploy out our changes to our database. Now, we could have also used some PowerShell scripts, you know, from some code that the developers had put up into source control. It doesn't really matter. So we're now deploying our application. We're doing it to our standard place, and now we're going to start the app. And this is really cool because we've now taken 4056 and deployed it out. What we now can do is deploy 50060 if we so desired. If we did that from the get-go, I just chose this one because I wanted to. You know, the cool thing is we have all our release notes here from developers, so we know exactly what's in our deploy. And the cool thing is if we hit up this, and what I'm going to do is, oh, here's our app. I'm now going to show you the prod app into change. So here's our function. Sorry. Oh, my screen has frozen. Right. What have I? Oh, again, DevOps can't fix misspellings, and I might just use HTTPS. Okay. So here is our prod system. Here is our functional test system. As you can see, there are some things missing because our prod system is actually live. We're, again, folding this back in. So at least we have something here. So let's have a look at our database server. And lo and behold, we now have some code. We have migration history, and we have all these other things. And this is as a result of the automated deploy. And so I kicked it off, but a developer could have, or one of our client service managers could have, or developer could have. What it means is that no DBA or developer or ops person are up at 3 in the morning deploying this out. And this isn't part of my demo, but I'm going to just deploy this out anyway. And I'll skip this step. And now this, I don't even know if this is going to work. While that goes on, we'll let this percolate. I'm going to show you one other principle around DevOps, is around the measurement. And I'll just find my shortcuts, because that's far better than me typing. And oh yeah, I'm doing a deploy. All right, let's then show you at least what it looks like in production. This is around being able to monitor things, and this is what we call a little pulse. And what this is about is we can monitor that the application can talk back to the database, and it has this particular thing here that we want to monitor, and we want to monitor it and be able to give feedback. And so this is one example. Here's a more intense example. This is for a running application that we use, again, our Pulse, and we can start looking at how quickly things are talking. So this again is, okay, so our deploy is finished. So I'll let that wind up. So this is about bringing information, performance analysis. We can parse all this. And again, we use the same methodology right throughout. And you'll have to excuse the layout of that. I'm using IE, which I normally don't. I don't know why it's done that. Anyway, the JSON appears to have gone a bit weird. Anyway, we use the same methodology. So if I went to our CI environment just real quick, and again, you might have worked out what our standards are. And conversely, if I use our build environment, you might notice something, that we have a standard form of monitoring. Alrighty, that's going to end the part of that demo for now. Some of the takeaways here are around the fact that we are being consistent during our deployment. And I want to close with some numbers. So it used to take us 4 hours for the first lot of deploys to a system. There were timing, communication issues, there were resourcing issues because it required someone to be around. People are sick. People have many different tasks, many different clients. So we got that down to 20 minutes by scheduling deployments, but there was really no real win. We got to know our applications a little bit better. We started automating the deployments, and we actually got them down to about 60 seconds, but it still involved people having to edit config files. It still involved people taking an artifact from our build server and, you know, running a script or whatever. By bringing everything together, we got that down to the 10 seconds or so that we saw today of actual downtime. You know, it's doing some things in the background, but who cares if it doesn't mean an outage to our system? Fully integrated, repeatable deployments. And more importantly, no editing of config files on servers. The deploy we did tonight, you did not see me edit one config file to make that go. It pulled it from the central repository. Biggest game changers. For the developers, it was around TeamCity, Jira, Bitbucket. For ops, infrastructure as code meant we could standardize and optimize our server builds. It didn't matter if it was in the cloud or, you know, if it was on premises or it was a physical or virtual, didn't matter. Octopus Deploy for the repository and scheduling was a huge game changer. People weren't up and are not up at 3 a.m. in the morning. We broke down our silos. We're collaborating. We've got automation for everything. Do you know what? That means faster, and safer delivery of things. And as you saw with our Pulse, we've got performance measures. So we're getting better information and we can trust the machines and have better working hours. That's a huge game changer. Right. Okay, so what's in the future? Well, because this is a preview, I feel that I shouldn't really talk about it because it'll be covered in my summit session. I'm just kidding. So, New Relic. What we're doing here is we're rolling it out for performance analysis. We started off with some of our test beds. We're now rolling it out for our clients. We're now integrating that with our deployment engine. We're using Raygun for standardized crash reporting and performance analysis. And Slack. So our clients use Slack. It's a great collaborative messaging tool. PASS is using it as well. And we're actually integrating our deployment engine into Slack. So there's a notification from the machine, not someone copying out of an email, going onto Slack and posting the wrong email. You know, they've told you that it's prod when it's UAT or UAT when it's system integration. And the future is to eliminate FearOps completely. The system I deployed to tonight is a live system. It's still being deployed to via other means in prod. We're now breaking that, we're removing it, and we want more animation and monitoring. I wouldn't have been able to do tonight's preview or this topic without some people who I've referenced here. Thank you so much for being part of my preview. I hope to see you at my summit session. The summit session is going to be big. It's a full demonstration. I am going to cut code. I am going to make database changes. I'm going to show you continuous delivery. We did an aspect of continuous delivery tonight on an app, but I want to show you in the database and why we put everything, and I stress everything, in source control. If you have questions, feel free to ask them tonight. If it comes to you later on, here are my details. As I said before, I do write a blog. I update it very infrequently. So at this point, I'm going to hand over if we have any questions, Daniel.
Yes, that was a great session, Hamish, and I will definitely be at your session at Summit. And we have a question from Matt. He's asking, did you use any particular tools for documentation?
Not particularly. Funnily enough, again, this is one of the things of working for a software company. We developed our own in-house documentation tool. And look, documentation can be as simple as release notes put up into source control. There's no reason why you couldn't document everything and put it into either Google Drive or, you know, SharePoint or wherever. The key thing here is have it somewhere where all the relevant parties can access it, and have it simple and measure your documentation. It's no good me writing some documentation in my language that, you know, at 3 in the morning or when I go to build something I understand. I have to give it to someone else and get them to review. And it's really important to peer review your documentation. Where you put it, yeah, that's important, but the key thing is about the delivery of the message of that documentation. And again, it might just be a Word doc. Or, you know, we used Word documentation, Word docs for what we called customer-specific information, right? And so what it was is for client A, they had, you know, 5 apps, and we had all the departures from build specifications in that doc. And it worked for a while. We now use, again, our in-house written tool, as well as Google Drive for our for sort of an off-site store. I hope that answers your question. Yeah. I'll finish it with this. Use what's best for you and your team, but more importantly, talk with your team and have a common goal for your documentation. You don't need the tool per se. You need a message that you all understand.
Yeah, we have no more questions here.
Okay, that's cool. Well, that's kind of good because it's 4 minutes coming up to the next session, and I'll tell you what, it's a cracking session. It's Peter Myers. I've been lucky enough, as well as you, Daniel, to meet Peter.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, such a knowledgeable guy, and this will be a really, really good, informative, and interesting session. So thank you all so much, and please make sure to stay tuned for Peter's session, Developing a SQL Server 2016 Master Data Services Solution. And thank you for attending, and don't forget to share your thoughts with hash of pass24hop and hashtag of SQL Pass. Have a good rest of your 24 hours of Pass. You know, this is hour 22. I'm glad everyone was sort of awake and joined us for it. So thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.